Hi, welcome to a Roboflow training movie. This movie will demonstrate a hot collection copy move record workflow where it will delete the record or the record and the asset and maybe an external file. We will show it in Cumulus 9, but it also functions in Cumulus 8 the same way. So I created a workflow, as I said, hot collection copy move record, and if I go to the setup, I have a catalog that I watch. I have a query saying status equals delete, an asset handling set. The record action field is empty, but not really empty. It contains an inline scripting command that says delete file, and delete file looks in a record field called thumbnail path. And then in this example, we're setting it to delete the file and the record, and even exporting it to a local folder, exporting the notification or the log that this file was deleted. If we look in the Cumulus catalog, I have two example files here, and some previous workflow might have exported to a certain location a PNG, a watermarked PNG. And we stored the path into the thumbnail path field that I added to the catalog. So if we look on disk, we have the original file with two files which reside here, and we have then the alternate, which is in the path specified in that field, which is watermarked PNG. In the first run, I'm going to set this first asset to delete, and I will I can click on the next one to get the save. Okay, so this record will be deleted. We defined it to delete the record and the asset, so the record will disappear, the asset will disappear, but it will also perform a delete on this external file. So I'm going to show the folders again, put them a little bit to the side, and at the same time have Roboflow up. As I said, I'm showing it now in Cumulus 8, but you could do exactly the same thing from Cumulus 9. And I'm saying start workflow. So it should find one record, and it should do something with it. So if we have a look here, it found this record and it sent an email to me notifying me about the fact that this record has been deleted. If we look on disk, the file is no longer there, the original, and the copy, the PNG version, is no longer there. If you look in the catalog, also the record has disappeared. So if we repeat this process now with this record, let's force him to save. Let's find him. There he is. So the second file version, if I now go back to Roboflow and I say, okay, I'm gonna do it this way, that I only want to delete the file and not, sorry, I only want to delete the record and not the file, then I just put it that way. We can put up the folders again so we can see what happens here. So this one should not be touched and this one will be deleted. Start workflow. You see this one is gone, this one is still here, and if we have a look, the record, and if we can search for it, is no longer there. So that's a very quick example of how you could do that in Cumulus 8 or 9. If you would want to do the same thing in Cumulus 9, here's how you proceed. In the web server console, you just log in and now you find Roboflow in here. Roboflow talks to the backend, to the Roboflow backend, and as I said, you can run this workflow and manage this workflow right from in here. But if you want to go for a completely new workflow that is actually not based on an old style pre-built workflow, but which you create from scratch, then it would be something like this: hot collection delete record, and we could say we are going to process a list of records. The parameters for this workflow is I'll run this on demand, so I can start it whenever I like, and I'm selecting the same catalog, so I'm going for the watch folder catalog. The query is, of course, I don't want to test it, I'm just going to type it in. So if you don't know the syntax, then you just go and build it inside the Cumulus client advanced search, where it will build you the string you need to use. If you want to know if this works, you can say test, and of course at this point we don't have a record in there anymore, so let's first copy this file into Cumulus standard. Yes, good, and let's go and export it the same way we did before to this location. Okay, if we have a look at the file at that location, we can see that we have the alternate here, so I can store the path of the file, of that external file, which is a PNG. As I said, this could be done by an external another workflow, for instance. So good, and I'm going to put the status to delete and save this. If I go back to my web, ooh, that was not the web that I intended to go back to. If I go back to my web, this query can be tested, so I can say check, and I want to see if this works, and yes, there's my file that I will have to use, my record, sorry. I could add etc. also the email notification, everything is exactly the same, but now we just get the record, and what do we want to do? We want to delete the record, so that could be a very simple one instruction: delete record. But before we can do that, we need to store a record field value. So I'm going to record field value. So I need to store a record field value as text, and he's gonna ask me, okay, from which record and then which field, and I can say it's from the watch, and the field is actually called thumbnail path, and the field is called, oh, and I selected the wrong catalog, so I don't see the field, so it's here, and do it again, thumbnail path, and now there I have thumbnail path. Good. I can say file to delete. It's always a good idea to give a little bit of extra information in the help, because then it becomes very easy to read when you come back to it. And then the next thing is, now I'm going to do something file folder like. So I'm going to file folder, and I'm going to store a file. I'm going to store a path as a file. Which is the path of the file? Well, the only thing you have to remember from your old Cumulus 8 days is the tag instruction. And remember, here we use a hash sign to call that in field. If you don't remember how you called it, just drop your screen a little bit, and you can see that you called that file to delete. So that's the file. And what type of action do I want? I want to store the path. I only want to store the path if it exists. So if it doesn't exist, I don't want to store it. I don't want to delete it. So what we get now is that I could just in the next instruction say delete, but I don't want to do that. I first want to nicely test if something about that file. And testing about that file will be which file? This one. File to process, file from path, and then file ends with, no, I want to test if the file exists. And I call this test if file exists. And I can copy this and I can say okay. And now if that file exists, I can say I want to delete it. So I'm going to file folder and I'm going here to delete file. So which file? Well, the file I created from that path. And now I'm certain. And now I could even add an else here saying test else and write something in the log saying I couldn't find the external file. So I could first do a conditional and say test else. And you know, a test always has an if, then I do something else, I do something else, and it stored the result of its previous if test under a name you chose for yourself, so you can choose it. And now we do the test else, and here you can write in the log I couldn't find the file. So that's the advantage of the new version of Cumulus 9 with Roboflow 9, is that you have a very easy way of controlling whatever the workflow does whenever the workflow does it. So could not find file, and again which file? Here, oh, tag, and what was the tag? I don't remember. So it's file to delete. Instead of doing this, I could just as well send an email, but I think this is enough. So here we go. Last thing to do is, now that we have deleted the external file, is that now I'm going to delete the record, or the record and the file. So I'm doing something with the record, and the instruction is delete record file. Don't worry, he'll give me which file, which record, always hot. Even if you don't get the hot selection, if you are processing in a hot collection workflow, it's always hot. Same for the catalog name, is always hot. Same for if you're processing files, it will be hot. So very easy to remember. And here I'm saying delete. Here you could do delete file of record, so only the asset, the record stays, record and file, or only the record. In this example I'm doing only the record. And that's it. That's all there is to it. So let's check one final time. In our catalog we have a record where we set the status to delete. We have an external file. Here's the original, and here comes the file. This one should disappear, this one shouldn't. So here we go. We click on the run button. I say start. It's executing the workflow. And again, the advantage in Cumulus 9 is that you can go show log and it shows you only that particular log file. And now it says, okay, I could not find that file to delete. That's not good. So we must have made an error in the workflow. First thing I check is, do I still have the record? Yes, no, it deleted the record, so that part was performed correctly. Second thing I check is, do I still have my file? Original? Yes, so that part was correct. And is the external file still here? No, it is not. So he did everything correct, but still I have a wrong message in my log file. So let's check. How do I debug? Well, I'm just gonna have a look first in the workflow what I might have done wrong. And I see right away what I done wrong. The if test here is closed, so it should not show any of the instructions that I did. If I open it, there's nothing in it. I forgot to put that inside. If you create a new instruction, if you do it the way I did, I click here and then I say new, it puts it underneath, not inside. If you put it like this, it will put it inside. Since I forgot to do that, all I have to do is say cut, click, make sure it's open, pointing downwards, and say paste. And now it's in there. And now it will no longer give that wrong error message. So here you have an example of how to move a functionality that you had in your Cumulus 8 to a functionality in using the Cumulus 9 tool. In the Cumulus 9 you have much more control over what the workflow does, and you don't have to use these cryptic inline scripting commands, which can make it very confusing. Thank you for joining me, and see you in the next movie.